one of the, the big four or whatever number it is. It's like Superstition, Kingdom, Concourse, of course.
Yeah.
Concourse. Um,
Concourse. Oh my God, I don't know why I didn't. Yeah, I didn't mention that one because that's probably on your goal list, right?
well, that's why because this is my second year doing ILLfest, and
Nice.
so I did it back in 2022.
Oh wait, where was ILLfest this year?
It was at Concourse this year, so
Oh, buddy,
that was
I
the,
messed me up.
the
Yeah.
excitement of it all was because I was like, I finally get to play at
Oh,
Concourse, and so
that's huge. It's
yeah,
huge.
and so yeah, it was very huge in all sense of the word. That was by far the biggest stage I've ever set foot on.
Welcome into the pod for the 23rd episode of Finding Balance in the EDM podcast. I am your host, Donpairion, and we have another incredible artist with us today. He is a local DJ producer in Austin, Texas, playing at notable events such as ILLfest in Austin, Texas, and clubs such as Superstition, Summit Rooftop, and In Cahoots. He has been support for the big name artists such as Jaws, Dr. Fresh, Don't Bresky, and Odd Mob. Come on, bro. Like, this is crazy. He is a Cosmic Academy alum, and he has been working on his craft for 6 years. Welcome to the pod, Miles, aka Herzo.
Wow, that was good. This is kind of intimidating. Mark down the history books. This is my first podcast. Excited to be here.
Happy to be a part of your storybook, man.
Yeah.
I dove and I found you, and I've been finding a lot of these artists across the board. And in Austin, you seemed like to be a face that was doing things and trying your best, and had a not just like an empty bank to be working on. You've been building your bank for so long to where the position you're in. I was like, man, I got to talk to this guy. I got to meet him. Got to hopefully one day shake your hand and say hello, man. But yeah, we're gonna get right into it. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are, and how you became an artist?
Geez. Okay. Well, I'll try to keep it as concise as possible. Well, we talked about this a little bit ahead of time. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I was like an athlete all my life. So I did gymnastics growing up for 13 years. So until about I was about 17, I think is when I finally just threw the towel in from injuries and certainly being burned out after doing something for that long. And then I switched over to springboard and platform diving, and that's actually
Oh,
how
that's right.
I got the uh, path for me to come here to Austin. And so I dove on the swim team at UT for 4 years, I think. And then again, injuries and burnout and stuff like that just took over. And it was around that time where now I, finally had all this free time apart from school, right? And I had been kind of, if you will, making some really, 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 really amateur mashups for me and my friends. Because this is about the time, like early, like Blau was doing some stuff, and then all the other mashup stuff in the early EDM scene was still kind
Right.
of the fourth focus of it.
Were you
Uh,
doing dubstep at that time, or trying to get into like bass
No,
mashups?
I was just, we were just going through, like I said, like some like Blau mixes, and there would be like, it'd be like a 30, 45 minute mix, right? And there would be like these certain segments in that mix that we were like, man, this is like the best part. I love it, love it. But we wanted to just hear that when we were, studying.
Yeah.
And so what I would do is I would try and figure out, because again, this is probably 2012, maybe 13. And yeah, I don't even know if like 1001 track lists even existed, and if it did, it was probably really not where it was today.
Yeah, it's huge today. 1001 track list. It's
Yeah. Anyways, and
mhm.
so I would try and find these tracks from that part of the mix, and then I think I used GarageBand,
Yeah.
again, without having any idea how heck to
I
use
straight
it.
up the first mashups I made them with the Serato software. I recorded like one part
Oh,
of
nice.
this. I recorded one part of the mashup in, and I took that, and then I recorded another part of the mashup over that, like when it would come in.
Yeah.
But it was just a makeshift way. You don't know like because
Exactly. You just
you
gotta. I think I. Part of me would love to go back and listen to these early mashups, and or if you want to call them that, but
you sure about
another
that?
bigger part. Anyways, and so that kind of was like my initial kind of step through the door into, I guess, doing what I do now. Then probably a year or so later is when I had some like leftover money from my birthday or Christmas or something like that,
Yeah.
and I just went to Guitar Center. Sorry, Guitar Center and bought a like a little Serato 2 channel, piece of crap mixer. I think there's like one of the like the really basic ones that have like the A
Yeah.
out.
Yes.
But I was like,
Yeah.
what do I know? I was like, it's cheap. It looks like it works. I
My
think.
first piece of equipment was this little Pioneer DJ Go. It was a We Go Pioneer We Go, and it was just literally this big. But it had your EQ and it had your channels and
Yeah,
two
it was
little.
like it kind of like the basic functions had all you needed to kind of use, and I got that, took it home again, didn't even read the instruction manual at all, just plugged it in my MacBook at the time, and just started messing around with it, and just immediately was obsessed with it. And so was doing that for a good bit, just in my room. Probably became my new way of procrastinating studying. But yeah, then I was just messing around my room, dragging random songs that I had already in my iTunes collection, and was just messing around. I did play a DJ for some like house parties for the swim team. So back
Yeah.
then, so I was still, and
Yeah.
if you
You
know
got to
anything
stay
about
connected in that
so like, yeah, if
area
you know
and
anything about
West Campus.
yeah, and so, but yeah, and then, like I feel like I don't know if it's still like this to this day, but in my era at UT, yeah, the swim team was we were kind of the leaders in athletic department side of throwing parties and stuff. It worked out really well.
Really?
Anyways, yeah, and so I would just for a couple of those, I think was just like, hey, I'll DJ. I'm not the biggest like socialite, you know,
Let me be
get
behind
super
the
hairy and walk
decks.
around and talk to
Yeah.
people and stuff. So I was like, cool, I'll just be up here in the corner with my little mixer on the ground, doing what I think I can do. You guys go have fun.
Love
So
that.
again, and like I feel like anyone can say the same thing. Is like doesn't matter what it is, but like your first gig to whatever sense it comes out to, you learn a lot. Like
I remember the first gig I ever had. I was over in San Marcos and Dose of Dance was doing something. This is back in like 2018, and I walked
mhm,
up and my USB wasn't formatted to I was like,
exactly, yeah.
shoot, okay, that's great.
That'll happen, man. Yeah, but yeah, thankfully I didn't worry about that. I just had to worry about my MacBook not overheating in the outside sun here.
Yes,
So
yeah.
thankfully that didn't happen. But I think I was uh, way too big for my britches, and being like, oh yeah, I can easily do a
In
four
time
hour,
frame,
5 hour set, and
this
then
time like
this
oh,
is
like
I've been DJing since 2015,
mm,
so I'd say it's probably around then, yeah. And then so that was like my early first gigs in 2015.
straight.
And then I think that was probably fall of that year. And then
Yeah.
by start of 2016 is when, after some networking and meeting some other people that work downtown, like 6th Street, Austin,
Yeah.
is when I started getting some actual like venue based gigs. And
So
again, that was just
I take a pause because as this is
yeah.
an interview, you have some experience. People that are listening to this podcast, how was that experience for you going in? Just way back then, if you could rewind yourself back, how was it going through trying to go and get those gigs, talk to the right venues, so to say, meet the right people?
I think, well, I mean, even certainly back then on those early ones, that was like it just kind of happened naturally. It wasn't like I was going out and trying to meet people to get gigs. It was,
Straight,
and it's also something I kind of um, recommend for anyone kind of trying to network for their craft.
right,
Is I think it's always best to come off as genuine as possible. Like there'll always be a time in any conversation I feel where it will be then the right time to bring up like, hey, I would like to play here, or
right.
the true like nitty gritty business side of things. But you should never lead with that. Is kind of my credo, if you will. And
You
that's how
got
it was back then too. I was just
it's
talking to people when they happened to work there.
It's for everyone. It's for communities to build. So if you're not you can't get plugged into a community just like that. It's how, what are they doing? Why do I want to be there? And then do I like these people? No, I don't like these
Exactly.
people. Then I go that don't invest there. If I like these
Yeah.
people, see what they're doing, you will just naturally feel a part of that because you feel those are your people. You like them, they like you,
Yeah.
and
100%.
then you're doing stuff. So what was one of those first opportunities for you?
It was first ever gig was at for those that know, Aquarium on 6th Street. on Aquarium on Sixth Street, yeah, and they've had some renovations throughout the years.
Oh yeah,
This
oh
back
yeah.
then, it was kind of like most the Sixth Street bars where it's just they
Oh
got me in a
yeah,
corner
like
somewhere.
Bat Bar and Buckshot. They're all like,
Yeah, they're all historic buildings, so they can't really do much on renovations. And even if they do, they're basically just throwing a fresh slab of paint. That's about it. But nonetheless, dude, it was like going from like those house parties or just again playing in my bedroom to an actual some sort of venue with an actual XLR plug-in to the wall and like being on an actual sound system.
right.
It felt like as if I was headlining EDC. It was like just the utmost coolest thing, and to
You're
take
not
it home
wrong,
even.
dude. You're such a relatable guy. Like I can relate to that experience. You're like, wow, I've
Yeah.
got this energy now. This
Uh,
the amplification of the
yeah. We're like,
energy.
I'm doing something right. I'm like, I was like, I can't believe it, right? But it's even funnier though, looking back, is that those early gigs though were just Mondays and Tuesday slots, and
Yeah.
then I was like, I don't even care if there's half a body in the in the bar. I'm just happy to play here. But again, it taught me so much about you know DJing, especially on those longer sets, because again, it's like there's nobody in there, but it's still a 4 hour set. And if you're not used to a 4 hour set, it's a lot. You got to have your library stacked with enough music to say the least.
What's this so much? What is the longest set you've played?
Okay, a few years ago, I was doing some day sets over on Rainy Street back in its heyday. And so I would do Saturdays. I would start at 3 p.m. and I would usually go until 10 p.m. And so that would be
Wow.
7 hours right there. Sometimes the DJ that would come on after me and do the 10 to 2 slot, he would get double booked or he would be sick or something like that. Or I got to the point where I was just so about it, and I would
Yeah.
build this crowd all day
Yeah.
during the daytime set, and I'd be
Right.
like, "Hey, if you're down with it, I'll just take over, and I'll give you like the say like the pay because they're gonna pay me what they're gonna pay him." I was
Right.
like, "I'll just do like I'll send that to you ahead of time, and I'll break even on that part of the set because I'm still getting paid for the daytime part."
Right.
So then I would just do instead of 3 to 10, I would do 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. So I would do 11-hour sets multiple times. Like it wasn't again, it wasn't
Yes.
a one-off thing. I did this probably God, probably throughout the whole summers, not every weekend again, but there's probably
Because
at least 10 times
sometimes.
I did that. And it was unreal because looking back on that now, I'd be like, hell no, dude. But again, it's like, if it's like, it's something that if if you're having the best time, the crowd's there, they're vibing with it, it goes by like that, man. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just unreal. But
I freaking love that I asked you that, man. And it's been
so
a question that
I
keeps on
did have a
coming
good
up.
answer for that one.
Yes, sir, you
Yeah,
do.
a lot of people can say 11 hours
I know,
on their
man.
resume.
And that's like when I think of these long set people, I think of Solomon, I think of Gene Ferris, I
Hmm.
think of people who just like to Green Velvet, people that just like to keep going and they're about
Yeah,
the music. It's a blessed thing to be around and to even get that opportunity to play that
yeah,
long, bro. What do you say, 10 times? That's kind of, I mean, it's kind of cool. Kind of
at
cool.
least, yeah. My friends would be like, I don't know how in the hell you were able to do that, man. And I was like, even as I was doing it, I was like, honestly, I don't even know either. It's it was
It comes to a point. I mean, like you keep going, and it's really I served tables for 10 years, and I
yeah,
really loved serving tables because I was in control of the table. I mean, I was giving the experience to them and the being in the control and where I worked doubles, which was like two back-to-back shifts, and that's like 12 hours of just being on your feet and staying in control of the experience when it comes to DJing, like being in control of the music is like the biggest part of the experience when
hmm
people are going out. So it's like being in control of that experience and knowing how to be the controller. Hell, there's songs
yeah,
about I'm the controller. There's some songs that like to say that shit, like just because DJs are the biggest controllers and you either know how to really control an hour or 7 or 11 or you
Hmm.
don't, and you could really mix up the dance floor, and it's a terrible thing to see when things start clashing. But
Yeah.
I think that the curation in Austin is pretty damn good. I mean, how do you feel about your peers in Austin and the DJs around the scene?
No, 100%. Like nowadays compared to yeah, back in those early days, 2016 and stuff, the amount of I mean, you go anywhere nowadays and it's kind of oversaturated. What I love about Austin is that it's fueled with yes, a lot of DJs uh since like nowadays since versus the early years,
Yeah.
but the high majority of all those DJs are so driven and like they care about their craft. They're not just doing it just because it's an easy, way to get money.
Have you met the Godspeed guys, Sam and I forget his brother's name sometimes, but they go by Godspeed. They're doing a lot
Ah,
of the two DJs, they're
that
brothers.
sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar? Yeah,
Yeah.
I like their DJs that are coming up and doing, open deck stuff and at the Cauldron and other places, but they have
Hmm.
I just like how they have a plan, and they got lights and they're
Hmm.
DJs and they put on events, and they are also working on music too. I think is a good thing to
Hmm.
point out is so the quality, as you said, like is really cool. So as we're talking
100%.
about Austin, and it's definitely one of my things I like to ask, why do you feel you like to live in Austin, and what's special about this city?
Are you asking more just in general or more like a
I
DJ
guess,
standpoint? Or
yeah, let's go with the art standpoint, the
okay.
creative standpoint, as a creative, as a producer DJ,
Hmm.
and even you as a person. I
Yeah.
also, why do you feel so special about Austin? Or why does Austin have a special spot in your heart?
Well, I think an easy out the gate answer would just be the fact that since I have been, part of the DJ culture here for again almost 10 years now.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Wow.
hard not to feel connected to that and like how much I've, you know, built for myself here, but also just from how much I've seen it change and grow throughout those years. It's hard not to, see that the city is kind of, my baby, if you will. That sounds really, really narcissistic, but
Oh no,
um,
no, no! You care for your babies. You care for
yeah,
it.
yeah,
It gives
that's a fair way to put it.
you gives you life, and no, that's how I consume that. I don't take that in any sort of other way.
Okay,
It's
good to know.
more endearing, I should say.
But and I just love it, and I think before I even started, DJing whatsoever, it was such a awesome place for like the nightlife scene, and it's because it's one of those few places where you have just close to like infinite options on how you want to like go about your night, and that includes like the genre of music that you want to listen to. Whereas most places, I think like even like we were talking about Houston earlier, it's
Hmm.
very scattered out, right? And
Very
so with
scattered.
Austin, it's like all right, like bar venue, what do you just like a whole
Right.
street, and then there's a whole nother street and a whole nother street of this the exact same stuff, and then
Fifth,
there's these big
sixth.
venues and they're all very close to each other, but
Right.
it's always amazing because you can go to a certain like one of those places and then right next door or 5 minutes up the road it'll be a completely different genre of music
Yeah.
and it'll be like it has potential to be the type of music that you want to listen to, and so why would you not utilize one of those menus, but then some places just it's just the same thing kind of over, it's almost like copy paste
Yeah,
um
the
type
quality
bars.
of there's a lot of space. It's all centralized, but there's a lot of space to do things, and really good venues to be able to throw events at is what I love about Austin. I love Kingdom a
Yeah.
lot. So there's so
And
many
then
unique
even
ones.
just the city in general, man, it's so just open to kind of everything, and to tie it into kind of music as well. You can just go to Zoker, the park here, and you'll just see some random kids with a fold up beer pong table and a piece of crap generator just playing. rhythm in the middle of the
Yeah.
park. And I mean, I guarantee
Shine
you,
some light on me, like, or wait, you guarantee what, bro?
I guarantee you, most of the people at Zilker aren't gonna care to listen to rhythm, but they don't care. They're like, this is what I like to listen to,
Music.
and you can do that, and you're not gonna really kind of get any flack for it.
Yeah,
But then,
that's true.
I'm sure there has been occasions where they do that, and they do form a crowd, which is kind of magical in my
Me,
opinion.
I think so too. It's the whole thing of the renegade type of setup, and
Hmm.
I was gonna ask you, have you set up a canopy and a DJ deck out in Zilker before? I'm skeptical of like, I just want to be approved, and so I can like, I think I would tell people, I think people would show up and be like, I'm going to
Yeah,
Zilker and House and Techno, fuck yeah, like, oh
I
my
haven't
language,
been the
sorry.
actual like leader of it, but I have done it with some people. So I guess if it did go
It's
to shit.
renegade, it's
If it
renegade.
did go to shit, I would 100% be guilty by association. Because I'm like, I'd be caught red-handed carrying, one of the speakers or tables, and then also one of the people, DJing during that
100%.
time.
Yeah.
And so I can, speak from experience on the fact that sometimes it does work really well. Like we just threw on a show on a whim in Zilker, and there was probably close to 100 people just jamming out right there on the middle of a Saturday.
Nice.
And like they weren't expecting to come to that. I mean, sometimes like we promoted it a little bit, but
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
majority of those people probably just were there to be there, and they were like, "Heck yeah, let's listen to some tunes."
That's what Zilker is for, and I mean, I really hope that they don't shut stuff down and unless they really need to, like there's fire. I know fire spinners go out there sometimes,
Yeah,
and I kind of am like, guys, you sure you should be doing that around this grass?
I think it's kind of hit or miss on if the person in charge of you know policing the park
Yeah.
is actually doing their
Yes.
job that day, or they're just not.
Oh yeah, I know. I mean, it's supposedly a park where you can have your dogs off leash, but I've gotten attacked by a German Shepherd in that park before,
No.
and it's just I've never got attacked by a dog in my life. But I was walking and it was the sun had went down, and with my boy that we were throwing some frisbee out there, and a light in my pocket from my phone. I guess it caught the dog's eye, and this dog just comes out of nowhere and starts darting towards me, and me and my friend were like maneuvering him and it's just like, dude. I mean, sometimes it's just like, yeah, just watch. Before I knew it, some girl was like, hey John, I think it's time to go. And this big dude comes and picks me up from my chest up, and he's like 6'5", and I'm like, are you John? Can you get your dog, bro? How old's your dog? Oh, like, fucking. I mean, so God, my language. 7 months. I'm like, oh my God, John.
Why?
Later.
I'm just surprised he picked you up rather than picking up his dog.
He was
You
trying
think
to
that would
pick
be the initial plan of action?
100%. Yeah,
Right.
I was terrified. I dodged him once. He grabbed my shirt, got teeth in my shirt, and then John, big dude, 6'5", gets me and tells his dog to back down, and we were on with our night from there.
At first, it sounded like John was also scared of his dog, and he was like,
uh,
"You got to get the hell out of here, Donovan."
I
Yeah.
know, man. And
Once
when
he's like this, there's no stopping him. Let's.
I know the dog police or whatever they're called are starting to circle around the large loop and come around, and I'm like, I don't want to put anybody in a bus or I mean down for the count or anything.
Mhm.
I don't want your dog to get screwed up, but please, if we're out in Zilker or we're out in
Yeah.
the green trails somewhere where all those creeks and stones and little water holes are, yeah, there's nobody looking around. And I mean, those are great spots, by the way, in Austin. I love those little trailheads all over the place.
Mhm.
That's one of my favorite parts. I just love the nature in Austin. I don't own a paddleboard, but if I ever get one, I would love to just be on a
Mhm.
Saturday and just go out to Lady Bird Lake. I mean, the quietness, and then there's people that gather. It's back to Austin being a big culture city.
Yeah.
It's really cool that light. So, um,
Agreed.
we'll keep going with the dance music stuff. Why did you get into dance music?
Again, I think it was just because I was a senior in high school. I think when like the early Skrillex days when it kind of like house
Yeah,
music and stuff.
ever, man. Why didn't I
There
find it
will be there.
sooner?
Also, and like for those that are old enough that can agree with me here. It's in like yeah, I was a senior in 2011, and so those like 2010 days, like in early Skrillex, it was still kind of frowned upon in a way, and kind of not mainstream whatsoever.
Oh,
But I remember hearing like early Skrillex, like the Cinema remix when it first came out back in that day, and I couldn't understand it. I was like, I but there's something there, and upon thinking about it more, it had to just been the energy of it, and I think
yeah,
that's just
it
always
was
what's kind of
it was because I wasn't a
yeah.
big Skrillex fan myself. I mean, I loved Flux Pavilion, and I loved
Hmm.
Troy Boy that came out, and I loved some like Zomboy and
Yeah.
Company as we started to progress in dubstep. But like back in the days, Skrillex, I mean, I didn't understand it. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, it was just kind of very foreign, if you will, I
Yeah,
think. And I mean, even nowadays, and it kind of goes like in the same book as it all, like I'm trying to point out, is that there's always energy there, but the other beautiful side of it all is that something, there's some type of dance music for everybody, I feel, because
right.
there's just a multitude of genres. And nowadays there's genres bleeding into other genres, and so they kind of, come together to make a whole different thing. But
Right.
the energy is always there. And I think that's what's always kind of like pulled me towards it. I
Yeah.
think, and especially for me starting as more of like an open format type of DJ, it was always really fun trying to figure out. Okay, I'm playing a lot of like hip hop, but I want to, even if it's just for me, the DJ at the moment, I was like, I want to try and slip some EDM in here, and then nowadays that's kind of all you hear nowadays in mixes is the kind of top 40 or like biggest
Yeah.
rap song or TikTok song or
And the
something.
and the
And what's like and then now it's like a full-fledged remix of it though, whereas I wasn't really, that wasn't popular at the time, so I kind of had to do it, mix it live or in some way, or figure out how to incorporate it into my sets, just from a mixing standpoint.
right. Yeah.
um, but it was always
Tough.
just so much fun because it's that kind of DJ mentality of problem solving, if you will,
Yeah.
right? And it's it gives you the utmost satisfaction when it does work. Sometimes it doesn't, but even then you're just kind of like, all right,
Yeah.
we tried. If it works, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna take note of that for sure. And then it's
Copy.
with if the crowd reacts to it well, then Bob's your uncle. That's
Y-
just call it a day. And like it's the best thing
Yeah.
ever. You're like, I'm just quit while I'm ahead.
So getting into dance music, you were back into this like Skrillex was interesting. How did this
Hmm.
progression into house music for you happen for DJing?
I would say it was definitely around the kind of the recent tech house boom of I don't know 21 or
Sure.
something. Because yeah, like those are like I've been DJing for since 2015, if you will. I've been producing for I'd say a total of like 4 years, more so probably two of knowing what the heck I'm more
Y
so doing.
Your sonic sound a little bit better.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like comes with anything. You got to put the hours in. Just you got the more you do, the more you learn.
I
And
saw
so
this quote today that was repetition will is just repetition works. Just look at the leaves, the ocean, and the wind, and see
Mhm.
how how heavy and how dangerous wind, water, all these
Yeah,
things, but how light they can be too. But with
hmm
repetition, they can wear things away and make
yeah,
progress of whatever they're doing. I don't know.
love that. Yeah, yeah. It's like you look at erosion and you see just a drop of water hitting a rock, and it doesn't it's just a drop of water, but give it
Just a
10,000
drop.
years, it's going to be a canyon. But anyways, back to your question. Yeah, so in early production years, I was then trap EDM and
Yeah.
like trap step and a little more in the 140, 150 BPM type stuff. That's always going to have my heart, and I still dabble with it a little now
You
with
like
yeah.
Troy Boy,
Flow
yeah,
Zone's been like
Flow
just
Zone.
on repeat now, like in like for my workout playlist, dude.
Flow
But
Zone.
so those early production years, I was doing that, and again, I was just throwing crap at a wall and seeing what sticks, and it seemed to work. Some stuff much more than others, but
Yeah.
again, it was just early production stuff, and so and then I used to kind of I don't want to say hate, but before the big tech house boom, and it became a little more mainstreamy, and
Before the Dom Dollar Dom Summit,
exactly. And so like I
A
kind of
craze.
yeah, exactly. I'd written house kind of off, except for I still do it to this day, but
I kind
even
of did
then,
too.
because it was like it was too minimal for my taste, and then from mixing and being a fan of like trap, which is just much more obviously higher tempo,
Mhm.
so naturally faster, but also just the mixing of it all was faster, so I was more accustomed to that versus finding the true art in like just letting the full 5 minute song play.
Right.
Anyways, before I digress too much, uh, with like a craze and like this newer tech house genre, if you
Mhm.
will, spoke to me more. I was like, I like this. This is actually something I would listen to, and it worked out really well because once I started making it, I was like, let me try to produce some house music, and I
Yes,
liked it
sir.
because I was able to get a similar level of quality result from the finished product, but it seemed like it was just like much more like fundamental,
Yes.
like the project file, if you will, for at least me kind of still learning a lot of the stuff, and so it was great because having it just be looking at it as a more simple project helped me learn a lot of like just like I said, fundamental basic music production
The
elements.
kick, and I
Yeah,
need
exactly. Versus being like,
drums.
all right, I'm gonna just throw 100 layers on there and making the house music. It was a little more
I can't.
like
Did you have another
better for my.
alias or something? Did you make trap under another
I was
alias?
I was thinking about it, man. But honestly, it took me so long to land on Herzo, even though it's essentially my last name.
Yeah, is that tell
Yeah,
me
it's Herzog. So I took the G off it to kind of make it sound a little bit less German. But for those that know me, I'm a really punny guy. I just rock dad jokes, and if you go to my Instagram, you're gonna see caption after caption of just bad dad joke. And so obviously, I love it when artists have a good like pun type of name. And so I was just you know like losing sleep over trying to figure out what it was. 'Cause, at a certain point, you need to have a DJ name.
Yeah.
And I guess I could have done like the typical minimal like tech house
Yeah.
DJ name and just use your first and last name, which is nothing wrong with that. But I know I didn't like that wasn't what I wanted to do,
Right.
and so I was like, oh, it's like crunch time. I need to figure something out. So I was just like, let me just do. I thought about just doing Herzog, but I was like, it's again, it is German, and I was like, that G is just a little bit too
A little
aggressive.
it's why is it
And it
here?
flows well, but and like at the beginning, I still just hated it because it didn't sound original really
I
because
love the name. I love
thank
Herzo.
you.
It looks
That's what
really
everyone
clean.
says. That's what everyone says, and so like that's encouraging and stuff. But whether it's your DJ
Hey,
name
the
or
the pun doesn't
anything
always
you
have to
do, or
work.
as you're mixing, us DJs, we're just our biggest critics in every single form of what we
Yes.
do. So if you can get past that, you can get past anything. Yeah, no, it took me a few years to kind of get used to it, and yeah, I'm in the boat now where I generally do love it.
Yeah.
The fact that it essentially is my name, uh, you know, helps it kind of mean a little bit more to me, I think.
Yeah, well, let's help make it mean even a little bit more, help the audience understand Herzo. And this is what I love to do with all of the
Yeah.
artists that sign at PH7 is I ask them, if it's not already established, what does your brand taste like? What does it feel like? And what does it sound like?
Man, that's something I've been rattling my brain around.
I'll give you just for since I know my brain works when I ask deep questions like that. I'm like, oh, I need a moment. So I'll give you examples. I'll give you examples of what I did for PH7. And I thought,
Mhm.
man, if I wanted, and you'll see this through the PH7 brand that there's a little bit more orange in there, because I want it to taste like citrus electrolytes, so like citrus and a little salt behind that because
Mhm.
we're about health and meet me in the middle. And
Mhm.
then I want it to feel like a mist, because I want it to feel refreshing on a hot day. I want it to feel like a mist, and then I want it to um, sound like a groovy trance of some sort, because a lot of the house music that's very repetitive, techno that's repetitive, melodic stuff not as repetitive, but it all creates some sort of trance of. But you start to forget that by the middle of the song, you should be forgetting that you're listening to the song because you're going on a journey kind of thing. So you're in a
Hmm.
trance.
Yeah.
I asked Tristan Chance, a dude that's signing on our label later on this year. He was just on the podcast. I asked him what his brand tastes like, and he said a warhead. And I lost my marbles for a second, because that was like, I wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah.
A sour warhead.
Yeah. It's like the good kind of sour though.
Yeah, yeah. And if you can't think of things that the how it tastes or feel like, what do you want
I
people to feel when they think of Herzo?
I think
Why would we follow Herzo? I mean, I know why I do, but
yeah, I think you might have mentioned the same word in your description for PH7. It's definitely my goal is kind of always to do what I can to be, as unique as possible, but not from like a truly, I don't know, experimental phase, but more so like from a refreshing standpoint. And so whether that be, in my set list, doing a certain like, edit
right,
or even with stuff I'm remixing on certain parts of the, build or drop or hook or something like that, just kind of have something a little more unexpected, and then like it's not so repetitive all the time.
right.
To like I said, to bridge that is like
So I'm getting
be,
refreshing,
be refreshing, but
element of surprise,
yeah,
these types of things.
because that's kind of the best thing you can kind of aim for, I think, as an artist in whatever form you take, but especially in the EDM DJ community, is find your own sound, and
Yeah,
even then do even more to make it as unique as possible, so that it sounds like something you would do. But again, even just like for like certain venues and stuff, like in cahoots and on like when I do these 4 hour sets,
mm,
I love to just bounce around genres, whether it's because my ADD or whatever it might be. But again, just keep it refreshing for the audience, because, and that might be just by switching genres, or it
hmm
could just be by playing something that they haven't heard before. Like whether it be like you throw a stick and you can hit a remix for any top 40 song now. But I purposely enjoy the, non-performing side of it, where, I'm just at my computer digging through whatever DJ Pool, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever, just to find these, kind of more underground, less known edits or remixes, that I know will work really well with the crowd. And so it's refreshing because it's something that they haven't heard before. And I've always kind of, I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this, but you can quote me if you will. But I've always seen it as though a good DJ uh, not only plays the music you want to hear, but plays music you need to hear.
yes. Absolutely. Not what you only want to hear, but what you need to hear.
Hmm.
What you need to hear. Yeah, I mean that's so powerful because the guy you're the digger. You're trying to, I mean, you could play absolutely anything, just like you said, or you could have a little care and search for some stuff and put a cool thing together,
Hmm.
practice, know what goes with each other, so that when you're drawing on your bank, you're not nervous that you don't know if they go together. No, you know that they go
Exactly.
together. You're like, I know if I start this, I'm just 1, 2, 3, 4 into my 16 bars. All right, I know I'm going to start it here. This is going to pop, smash, boom, perfectly, and the crowd's going to be right here. The remix thing, though, you put a thought in my head. Have you heard of DJ Susan and Hood Politics? Do you draw on that bank of remixes at all?
100%. Yeah.
Oh, I've tried to.
I've also met DJ Susan before, and God,
Yeah.
it's funny. It's like him and Dr. Fresh, same. Where it's just
Tony and Steven are the same.
yeah,
Oh my God, dude.
it's like just like two parts of the same person, man. Like, and it's like if you've ever seen, like, they're big guys.
Yes.
I mean, like the higher 6 foot.
Yeah, DJ
Yeah. Oh my
Susan.
God, they're like if Godzilla was a golden retriever, right? They're just like the
Oh,
nicest people
DJ
ever.
Susan.
Yeah, that man. And it's like, and it shows outside of their sets and certainly during their sets. Like, and that's something that I've definitely um, learned to kind of embrace in these later years versus when I first started.
Yeah.
Is towards having a stage presence. I used to again lose sleep over before a show. I'd be like, I'm not gonna be like exciting enough or anything. But if you just have fun with it, that's all you gotta do. If the crowd sees you having a friggin' blast, they're
Yeah.
gonna follow suit. And
Has there been any artists that have influenced you to think this way or, present yourself with Herzo the way you do?
towards like the having fun with it.
Having fun. Yeah, yeah. And I guess because we talked about your brand and refreshing surprise element of surprise. Some of this one quote you just said too.
Mhm.
But for you to form and think that way, and as you said, bring a fresh thing to the table. I don't know. It probably is part of your upbringing, but
Yeah,
also I was thinking from a creative perspective and inspiration. If there were any artists that were like, man, this guy I really like the way of doing it. I mean, you just talked about DJ Susan like that. That was for
yeah.
example.
I think it's just through meeting them and just people like DJs when they're not DJing. I think are it's great if you're able to meet them. It doesn't matter like the I guess the level they're at in their career.
Yeah.
That's when you get to actually meet them. That's why I love doing something like this. Is because whether it's an afters or just before a set or right after a set. I think if you're able to meet them when they're not performing, you get to see them as they truly are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna sound like a broken record for saying this word again, but it's refreshing, right? And it's it's always a nice thing to see them how they are, and it's really fun when they have the same energy. I think are close to it as when they have on stage, and like for ILLfest, this past March when I played, I was one of the earlier slots, and so the rest of the day I just was out enjoying the show, the rest of the sets and stuff, and um, I think on one of my like on the Instagram recap post or maybe a story or something, this random girl, I don't think I had met her personally or anything. I think she saw my set and she decided to follow me, but she commented on again a story or my post saying something along the lines of loved your set, but also loved that you were out in the crowd afterwards, enjoying the rest of the shows. I think that's so important.
Amen.
I think that's so important because because it's not necessarily it is my job nowadays, but it's more than that. I just truly enjoy like this culture, this type of music in general, and so I feel like I'm digressing a lot.
No, no, we'll loop it back in. I'll keep the conversation going. You were talking about ILLfest just a minute ago, and just
Mhm.
that refreshing energy when you're able to meet, which just let me in on a thought of thinking about your experiences and these places you've played. I do want to touch on that. ILLfest being one of them. Um, you just talked about that experience, so I won't ask you again. But the other places that you played, such as In Cahoots and Superstition and so forth. Talk about why In Cahoots? How did that relationship go right there? And what you got? What do you got going on over there?
And so with In Cahoots, it's one of those things where it boils down to just doing it for so long. Austin, especially, it's essentially all the same, like 50 people, I feel like, that kind of rotate outside of it. Not necessarily DJs, but
Yeah,
the people like the managers and stuff and bartenders and stuff like that.
right.
And so it's funny how it just kind of fell in my lap. I was the GM he was just kind of consulting there for a month or two, but he was at another venue called WTF,
Huh.
and this upcoming weekend, back in I think May this year, I had an open Saturday, and it was one of my best friend's birthdays, and he was like, "I want to go like hang out and get a table maybe, but ideally I want it to be wherever you're playing." So I was like, usually if I have a Saturday off, I'm like, "Heck yeah, I'm just gonna do nothing."
That,
But I was like, "It's my friend's
yeah.
birthday, so I'm definitely gonna go out." And so now I was like, the stakes are high because I was like, I need to get a gig now, and so I hit up uh, that bar manager friend for WTF, and I was like, "Hey, anything open this Saturday?" And he was like, "Oh, actually, I'm no longer working there." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'll try someone else then." And then I hadn't booked anything. The Saturday of, he texted me again. He was like, "Did you find anything for tonight?" And I was like, "No." Nah. He was like, "All right, well, I'm working at In Cahoots now, so you're booked." I was like, "All right, that worked." And I had never been there before either, and so I had no idea what to expect. But I was like, "It's better than nothing." I'm sure my friend having the birthday was gonna be stoked. And I get there, and it's this really nice rooftop bar, um, and it's wide open. It's nice because it's high up on the roof, like I said, but
It's
there's
on the
some wind,
east. It's
so
on the
you're
east.
not just
It's on the east
yeah,
side.
yeah. And so that's kind of been the latest kind of blowing up section of downtown Austin too. And so I've been there pretty consistently since then. But it just kind of fell in my lap. But it all boils down to just long term networking, I guess. And
Yeah.
him, me working with him and being friends with him to a another degree as well. To where because he didn't have to you know touch base with me and be like, hey, I need somebody for the night. Obviously I'm super grateful that I was his first person to hit up. And so it's funny how it just kind of works out like that. But, it's again all because of just having, forming good relationships with people. Not just because, he thinks I'm a good DJ, but, he just sees me as a good friend, I guess,
Good,
if you will.
good. Your natural self, absolutely transparent and genuine at all times, as you were saying. You're a testimony to genuinity and it just fruitioning over time.
Hmm.
I mean, I love hearing that kind of stuff because that's a lot of stories I hear, and that's exactly how it happens. There's not a whole lot of time that there's no work involved, and then somebody's just giving somebody a random big shot chance. Nobody wants to do that to anybody. There's a whole lot of pressure if you're not ready
Yeah.
for that. And he had some ounce of respect and knowledge of you, and he came and tapped on your shoulder in the when the light came on the day.
Hmm.
So that's super cool, man. That's super
Yeah.
cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Of course, man.
The other thing was Superstition. That's another cool club that has popped up in Austin over the past two,
Hmm.
3 years. How'd you get involved over there?
God, I haven't been there in a while, and there is some reason behind that, and I won't
No,
throw
you're
anybody.
good. Keep it the good
Yeah, I'll,
stuff.
I'll keep it positive because it is a gorgeous club, man. And it's
Yeah,
funny again. I won't try to digress too much, but I've been in Austin since 2011,
yeah.
and it's like the building that Superstition is at. I think it used to be a gay club,
What
or
was it? I have no idea. That
I think it was called
location.
La Bear, is what it was.
Really?
But it
Okay.
had been closed down since before I even got here in 2011, and it was it's like in peak, like a great location off Riverside near Lake Austin,
Yeah.
right by Congress, which is like essentially the main street here. But it was just this rundown building, and it was kind of cool because they never like painted over it or anything until Superstition, but it was just this. I think it's always been gray, but it had these vertical like old school Ferraris and Lambos painted on the side of it. And so it was obviously just kind of a nice like piece of art to drive past all the time.
Sure. Oh
But
man. Oh.
even like before I started DJing, and certainly by the time I'd been doing it for a few years, I was constantly just being like, who's gonna eventually buy this great spot? And so and again it worked out really well for me when I first opened because I had done I had been one of the resident DJs, some guys to Superstition at one of the bars over on Rainy Street, and
Yeah.
then they had another one off more downtown. And so I'd been in their kind of
Their network
go-to
of,
list
yeah,
of
go to.
people.
Hmm.
And so when they first opened, they were doing a lot more club nights, and then along with kind of the bigger shows. I think they're connected with C3.
Yeah, they are
Yeah,
connected with
so that's why
C3. Yeah,
that's a great in if you want to get some big name artists
I
in
know.
your
C
venue.
a lot of stuff for the venue over on 6th Street. I know
Yeah,
for quite some time. I don't know if they're still doing anything over
I
there.
think they'd probably move over Superstition,
Yeah.
for sure. But yeah, so that's why Superstition's kind of one of the the big four or whatever number it is. It's like Superstition, Kingdom, Concourse, of course. Um,
Concourse. Oh my God, I don't know why I didn't. Yeah, I didn't mention that one because that's probably on your goal list, right?
well, that's why because this is my second year doing ILLfest, and
Nice.
so I did it back in 2020.
Hey, where was ILLfest this year?
This it was at Concourse. So
Oh, buddy,
that was
I messed me
the
up.
main
Yeah.
excitement of it all was because I was like, I finally get to play at
Oh,
Concourse, and so
that's huge. It's
yeah,
huge.
and so yeah, it was very huge in all sense of the word. That was by far the biggest stage I've ever set foot on,
Amen,
and
brother.
it's
Amen.
funny to see back at like some recap footage, and it's like I'm just like a small little pixel up there on this LED wall that's
My
the size
mighty
of,
me with all this amp.
and so yeah, that was great.
Do you
But
have? Do you,
that's tradition though.
yeah.
Yeah, it just boiled down to um, being connected to the like I had no idea that you know because they closed down the club on Rainy Street, and I'm sure they had some degree of plan for Superstition, but they didn't tell anyone anything.
Yeah.
And so, the whole city was sad when that bar closed. And then I think within 6 months or so, they announced it. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then, they started hitting me up. And every time, it always takes longer for the, like, versus like the planned opening versus when they actually do open. But once it finally did, I was like, done. Yeah, I love to play here. It's a gorgeous venue. But that was never like a plan, right?
Yeah.
It's just kind of master your craft. Don't burn any bridges for sure. Is probably something that you can use in any form of life.
Bridges.
Don't burn
Never.
bridges because and kind of be patient with it, and that's it.
So when that was happening with Superstition and some other stuff was, this is 2021, 2022, 2022, I'm guessing, something like around there. 2023 at
It
least,
was
if not.
2023, yeah. It
Yeah.
was, I think Superstition opened
And
started 23.
and these things are, I'm just trying to piece things together as like your timeline, and then things are starting to happen. And where was producing? You were starting to get a little bit better at producing around 2022 to
Mm-hmm.
2023, right?
Yeah, I think I put out Why Not was that first original. I think I did that. I think it was end
Nice.
of 22. And so yeah, so that was right around the time where yeah, like I can kind of got more confident in the stuff I was producing
Right.
um to actually put it out there.
Was Cosmic Academy, what timeline was that? Was that a part
That
of
was this past year. That was right after ILLfest. Yeah, so I'm
high
fresh off
five,
the
man. High five.
thanks,
That's
man. But that was I had I done that earlier, I totally would have. I'd like or had I could have done that earlier, I totally would have. Those guys are just amazing. Like they're just great teachers. Like I've always kind of been, you know, struggled in school, and so a good teacher definitely always helps. But other side of that, it's like if it's a it's something you like, actually care about, that
yes.
you're learning about, then that helps immensely as well.
How high the hill is, you can climb it. I mean,
Yeah.
I spoke Chinese language after being a Chinese major in school.
Wow.
Chinese, the way I study producing these days, it was
Hmm.
nonstop, test myself, nonstop.
But no, like back to what I was saying though, real quick, is that like I would let these guys teach me like I don't know what's something crazy like fluid dynamics or something, and I'd probably be like so engaged because again they're just good teachers, but they know exactly what they're doing for like music production on the EDM side of stuff, and it was a 5 week boot camp, and
Do
I
they
wish
help you
I
with
wish
your marketing brand?
everything too. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. Yeah. They touch base on a lot of stuff. And then yeah, like after you're done with it, you're still part of like the community. So I still go to like these weekly feedback loops, whether to offer feedback or to receive it on some new stuff I'm working on. And
love
so
that. Yeah.
it's they've built us a really fantastic community through that. So
Do you
I
use
can't.
any? Do you use anything else as well? Education wise, constant development and learning type
I
stuff.
think I would
Continuous
say,
learning.
I mean,
Yeah.
I still 100% like, we'll pull up some YouTube tutorials. What's his name? I think TikTok I use a lot. Sam Smyers, I think.
Sam Smyers. I haven't
Sam
heard of him.
Smyers.
Yeah.
SAM, I think it's SMYERS. He does a great little TikTok series on Serum plugin, like
Love
recreating sounds and stuff from certain songs. And so if I'm ever like, having trouble finding like, um, for like the sound used for my bass line, I'll just like scroll through that
it. Yeah.
and be like, "Ooh, I like that one a lot. Let me see if I can recreate it." And then the beautiful thing about Serum and stuff is that you can tweak it a little bit more from there and get it to match more something on the unique side
Yeah.
for what you want to use it for.
Yeah.
But yeah, like 100% is outside of I guess still teaching myself outside of Cosmic. I would say yeah, that's probably a big one. YouTube tutorials, 100%.
Have you heard of
I've got
Kick and
one.
Bass? Have you heard of Kick
Yeah.
and Bass? Yeah.
Yeah, there's the West End guys over there. Yeah, they have
Weston and FOMO,
mhm.
Morgan, those guys, Morgan, I can't forget his partner's name, but for FOMO, but
Yeah, it's FOMO.
they're
Yeah,
the
they're goofballs.
funniest goofballs, man. And he's such Morgan's an excellent sound designer, Weston's a good teacher, and they got a whole
Mhm.
bank of like excellent tutorials that I preach. I ask everybody if they're using kick and bass if they're in this genre of music
Yeah,
because
yeah. I definitely like go to their videos and stuff. I'm not part of their like
little
membership
community
Discord or
membership, yeah,
whatever is the thing, but
yeah,
I mean, maybe one day, I don't know, but I know a lot of people
sure,
that do use that for sure. And then to tie in with that as well, like I'm happy to send it over, like some stuff I'm working on, and be like, hey, because that's the problem with music production is that you're just listening to the same thing over and over and over again, and so
yeah.
one thing is that it's always going to take a step back, give it shelve it for maybe a day or two, and then come back to it so you have a fresh ear. But I much prefer to just be like I once I start and like something's going well, I just want to finish it as soon as possible. So instead of shoving it, I'll usually just send it over to some friends and be like, hey, what do you think it needs? Which is kind of like what the cosmic feedback sessions do, but just from a more intimate one-on-one type of setup. That's usually what I'll do for some friends, or like I'm driving someone home after a show or something. One of my DJ friends, it just him and I in the car, and I'll throw it on the the car.
Oh, I'm the worst
Yeah,
about
like
that. Oh no, I'm just like, yeah, it's not ready, but hey, I think it's really cool. Check this out. Check this. But you said the word finish, and it's one of my. We'll maybe wrap this section of the podcast up with this question: is as a producer, how do you? What helps you finish songs? And yeah, I'll start there. What helps you finish songs?
I think just because it's something we touch base on in Cosmic, on the whole like arrangement side of stuff, and I think it's just like the route you go about it for sure. But I think another key thing is that helps immensely is just having enough hours in production done, I guess,
Yeah.
to be confident enough to be like, all right, this is good enough where it is at the moment. Let's move on to this next section, and not just being like spending a whole day on just finding a kick drum sample until it's perfect, versus being like, all right, this will work for now. Let me start messing around with like the other parts of the song, and then I'll make a note on my notepad to be like, come back at a certain point to
Get that.
find a new kick drum or something like that. And so I think it's just kind of having that confidence in being like trust, like don't worry what it sounds like until it's finished type of
Yeah.
mentality, because and then once it starts forming itself, and you get that excitement. I think those that know, where you kind of obsess over it. At least I do, and
Session, you're
just kind
like,
of let that take over, and don't worry too much about making it perfect. Just make it your own. Yeah, don't strive for perfection. Strive for the enjoyment of it,
right.
because it's never gonna be perfect. It might be close, but even then, it's not gonna ever be perfect. As much as we want it to be, is what it is. But as long as you enjoy the process of it, or find a way to enjoy the process of it, um, that's gonna definitely, I guess, pave the path for you to be much easier, I think.
You got to keep it creative. You got to use new elements, and once you
Yeah.
get your groove right. I find
Mhm.
myself is as soon as I get my groove down, then I just know what do I want to do with the song? What's the feel of the song? Do I want a guitar? Do I want some sax?
Yeah, and then just because you want it, then you try, you're like, actually, that doesn't work,
Yeah,
but
I
I'm happy
try.
I
Don't care,
or
so be a little more free spirited with it, right?
Mhm.
That's what this other guy said, Tristan Chance, is I stopped caring so much, but not in the like negative way. Like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just be more free spirited. You be more like a hippie producer and just kind
a
of
heavy
let it.
producer.
Yeah.
Quote her.
But
So
I think the bet like when you do kind of sorry to cut you off,
no, you're good. You're
when you do
good.
kind of just kind of let the creative side of it take over, and like like the or just having fun with it, I think that is where true art stems from, right? Is because then it's, if you're just having fun with it and doing it for you and not striving for this perfection or trying to, make the next, Dom Dalla track or John
Right.
Summit track or whatever.
You're making the next Herzo track.
Yeah, you're making it for you. And so, if, who knows if it's going to blow up or not, but it's still going to be way more creative if you're doing it for those reasons versus just trying to, strive for perfection or to, make a copy of something, I guess. And something I've started to implement some like more like original vocals into my
Good.
stuff. And I
Do
think one
you
of the
do
songs we'll get into later.
any Audi Me AI vocal stuff, or do you?
Yeah,
I
I
have.
forget, I can't remember which one I did. Yeah, just to, I think the song we'll listen to later is for ultrasound. It's my voice, and them singing the harmony, and I think I pitched it down from there, and then warped it, and then also fed it through like an AI.
His
Exactly.
advice
Yeah.
is to record in your DAW and do whatever you want to do to get it ready, prep it so
Yeah.
that it can, read it and and your ingredients are strong and your stew is looking good, man. And you know how long ago, or not how long ago, but before to now, when you were starting to write songs, heck, I'm just going to pick Cosmic Academy in here. Before Cosmic Academy, how long did it take you to write a song? And then now, how long does it take you to?
No, nowadays, I can once if I sit down and do it, I can probably get one out within a week, and then God, yeah, not even before Cosmic, but just in general, man, I was just probably I'd probably obsessed with it.
For like three
It would
months,
probably be it would probably be done within like a month, I think,
right?
but I think I would just like beat the crap out of this dead horse and like for another like two, so it'd probably be about 3 months.
You
I
must
think
go through
before
this. You must go through this.
and like and so yeah, post cosmic now being like so efficient with it or way more efficient with it, being able to just like this like the sigh of relief I get internally from only having like master final v like
I was
11.
just
Yeah, it was
sorry.
bad, and like it would just get to the point where like I'd be like I don't even remember what the last one was, and so like I feel like I started doing the exports
Date them.
down like
Date
it's
them.
not like Edmonds. It was like A12 B13, and just because I was like I don't want to like replace anything, and yeah, and so it got
God, yeah, dude. My God, you just reminded me. I actually wrote this question down that was about not seeing a song for the light of day or something. Pod question. Yeah, well, this will be the wrap up question of the interview, and we're going to get into the music. We
okay.
have one song for us today, as you're just talking about. And so, this last pod question, do you have a song you really like that just was never released due to some specific thing happening, such as it didn't get around to vocals, didn't get around to mastering the vocals, or you just thought it was finished and sent it out to so many labels and it just didn't catch any traction, so you lost confidence in it? Does one of those records sit in your song bank?
Yes, that is a big one. And like I had no idea what this last question was going to even be, but by like the fifth word, I was like, oh yeah, I know exactly what to say. It was this one I did. I don't remember when it actually made. I think it was 22. I think, but it was this kind of Herzo house type song. It definitely sounds like me on like the tech house, bass house side of stuff.
Sure.
But I had always in like planned for it to have a vocal on it, but um, and I feel like it's too late now to go back and put one over it and now and stuff, and I just kind of kept it as more of a full instrumental type track for a good bit, and I think for parts of the build, I went into Splicing or something and found like a kind of like a vocal uh, chant hum type sample to throw like over it. And so that was the original version, and I was like, I shoved it. And I was like, one day I maybe I'll find like a good vocal for it. And so I just called it hums and stuff. Messed around with it again, and so I what I did instead, I found like ripped a good vocal a cappella from that song and added that to it, and then warped it and stuff like that, and transposed it to the right key and stuff. And it works beautifully. It works so well. And so, but I was like, I can't, technically the instrumental is original, but I can't, you know, send it
Release
to a
it.
label. I wrote No Hands by Waka Flocka, but it's something I play all the time in my like live sets, and so
Uh,
it's kind of it's it never saw the light of day as far as getting signed or being put out there for the public, or I guess I could put it on SoundCloud. No, I think it's flagged on SoundCloud, so I don't think I can do that
yeah,
either.
yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, it's just kind of become like a Herzo VIP. You only hear it if you come see me live sometimes,
Boom.
which I'm fine with too, because it hits, and like that almost makes it more special to me, I think,
Absolutely.
because now it's like I don't have to listen to it all the time, and it's like oh, it's right there. It's like cool, like this is gonna hit every time, and it just it's funny how that was never the plan to make a remix for that song, but I just happened to like think about the vocal, I guess, and threw
Yeah.
it on there, and it worked beautifully. I'll send it to you at some point, and so you
Yeah,
can you
man.
can
I gotta
you can
hear
tell me
it.
what you think.
I
But
asked
yeah,
this question because I was literally there's a single song that I have that
mhm.
that I even made the lyrics. I could say them to you right now. It was a love song, but I don't know if I'm gonna release it. And it was I was on a dog walk and I was like, man, this would be a great question because is I know I there has to be a story behind it because there's a story behind mine. So
Mhm.
super cool, man. Super cool. All right. Well, this is definitely one of the longest podcasts. I think, though, we've kept it groovy and absolutely interesting. So, if people are listening the whole time, I hope they do. I mean,
There we
just
go.
throw it on. Podcasts are there for the listening and um, just grooving. So, we're gonna get into the music. And actually, bro, both the songs loaded in. We're
They
jamming.
finally did. Okay,
They
there we
did.
go.
So we
Cool.
got Ultrasound and Damn. Ultrasound is unreleased, right?
Yeah, both these are unreleased. Yeah.
Both released, and you were just talking about ultrasound just a minute ago, how you warped the vocal a little bit. Do you have anything else that you want to say about the song? Like, kind of
So
feel, is it?
it was both of them actually stemmed from Cosmic, essentially, like music we made during the boot camp, and so Ultrasound originally had a completely different vocal on it. I think like the groove and bass line was a little bit different as well, but
Yeah,
I found this. I think it was Bior or something, some random Splice sample vocal, and it worked out really well for it. But
yeah,
I immediately got shut down because I was like, no, yeah, like no original music with Splice vocals can be used or something like that. So I had it again as a just instrumental for a bit and kind of fine tuned it from there, which I think helped a lot. And then a few months back, I was like, let me try and make my own vocal for it. And so I came up with this vocal melody for it. And then yeah, like we were talking about, AI warped it and made it sound nothing like my voice.
doesn't really know what these AI vocals are doing. I mean, there's a lot of pitch bending and stuff that is
Yeah.
running through algorithms, and it's transforming it into, something we couldn't really do to the voice with the processing tools that we have, but the AI algorithm can do something with
Mhm.
it. So,
Um,
um, I've been using it. It's
but
been helping my workflow a little bit. So,
Yeah, and this is like right around the time where like I had I was probably late to the scene, but I just discovered like funk, and so I wanted to pepper in some of that in there. So you'll definitely see some elements of that
my God, I'm sit here and act like I know what that is. What is funk?
funk. It's you'll recognize it for sure.
Okay.
It's like that specific cowbell synth
Look up
Um,
funk. Okay,
it
yeah.
almost sounds like a doorbell. I don't know. It's hard to say, but
I'll
you'll
be
hear it
on
in
the
like
lookout. I'll be on the
the first
lookout.
bit there, and I'll see if your face lights up from knowing what the heck I'm
All
talking
right.
about.
Well, both of these I did not listen to them yet. I wanted to do it live and listen to it for the first time. So, let's go, buddy. All right. I'm gonna put it.
Let's run it.
I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah.
The body round and round, that's it, girl, you love the sound. Welcome to the underground, this bass hits deep, ultrasound. Move the body round and round, that's it, girl, you love the sound. Welcome to the underground, this bass hits deep, ultrasound. Move the body round and round, 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 move the body round and round. Move the body round and round, that's it, bro, you love the sound. Welcome to the underground, this bass hits deep, ultrasound. Move the body round and round, that's it, bro, you love the sound. Welcome to the underground, this bass hits deep, ultrasound. Ultrasound, 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 ultrasound. Ultrasound, bass hits deep, ultrasound, 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 bass hits deep, ultrasound, 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 bass hits deep, ultrasound, 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 ultrasound. Ultrasound. Move that body round and round, that's it, bro, you love the sound. Welcome to the underground, space hits deep, ultrasound. Move that body round and round, that's it, bro, you love the sound. Welcome to the underground, space hits deep, ultrasound. Ultrasound, 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 bass hits deep, ultrasound. Ultrasound, 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 bass hits deep, ultrasound.
Let's hear that groove as we go out.
There we go. That's not much of a beat.
Yeah, super cool on that, man. I always like to give a little feedback.
Yeah.
I said that I was wrote down that the hook was super catchy. I like your lyrics. You done did well, dude, on that.
Yeah,
That sat
I'm
right.
quite proud of coming up with that hook on a whim.
I love a good hook. I love when a hook
I
happens.
think I'm trying to remember like how it came to be though. I think I got like the first part down, and it was like like the move your body around and around.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but then like I was on like Google trying to be like what rhymes with sound or what rhymes with round that thing, and the only like I had like used everything I could have used, and then like the last one was like ultrasound, and I was like, how the hell am I going to implement ultrasound? Because you think of
Yeah, ultrasound.
pregnant
A
girl,
pregnant girl,
and
yeah.
I was like, that can definitely work, I think.
Gotta hit
And
deep.
so, yeah, basic deep ultrasound. So, it's kind of interesting, but
I
no, I'm
really
proud of it for sure.
really
So I'm glad
like
you like
that. The groove was super good. Very compact sounds. Everything was compressed super well, I think. Yeah, a really cool rhythmic acid shuffle that it wasn't like your typical
it. Hmm.
like it was boom, and then it had a shuffle
Yeah,
to it on the like the up the catch and then the down, which was really cool. The mix, as I said, was really good. Cool dark bass house elements in the middle of that song and throughout.
yeah,
I think you said you came from a little bit of like bass house kind of stuff, so that kind of makes
yeah.
sense.
Like so it's almost like people ask like what my like the house music because you can't just nowadays you can't just be like I make house music. It's
It's
like
not.
all
This
right,
wasn't bass house, so it's not bass
no,
house
that's what I'm like. It's like tech G house ish. Like I like
ish. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
More on the tech house side.
dark tech house if you will.
Dark tech house. Yeah, dark tech
Hot
house.
topic tech house for sure.
Wow, hot topic. OG. And then really good arrangement too. I thought the arrangement was super cool and it was fun. It was dancey.
Thanks, man.
So, um,
Heck yeah.
all right. And I loved how we were just conversating. Like I'm giving this feedback, and you're like in into it. I love talking about music, man. And the easiest way to talk to me is talk to me about my music. So I feel
There you
like
go.
that's the easiest way to talk to a producer that has the like mind, if you know what I
For
mean.
sure, man. Connects us all.
Amen. So we got Damn next.
Okay.
Anything 2 cents on this song? What are we prepared for?
This one definitely, I think you'll see elements of it for sure, stemming from kind of my trap roots, if you will.
Uh,
There's I think second break. I think I think it's around that time. I switched the drums up, do a little more of a kind of a garage, a little more trappy drum pattern for it.
nice.
But big thing with me and trap EDM stuff is I've always loved vocal chops. So that was kind of the forefront plan for this song. And so I wanted to make a melody out of something using that. And so I think I just found random sound. I can't remember what I got from Splice. I think I found some type of animal or something on YouTube actually, and then
Like
modulated
like a
prose and stuff,
lion
and
or something,
you'll hear
or
it, yeah. Um,
big old
and so
roar.
yeah, it's definitely trappy Herzo elements throughout, but um,
Nice.
yeah. And then
Let's
this was definitely a little more of a work in progress. I think I just again might be over critiquing myself, but I think I definitely want to work on it a little bit more. At least maybe the cleanliness and maybe the arrangement as well.
yeah.
But nonetheless, it's still a friggin' blast of a song in my opinion. Everyone I've showed it to for the second drop, they like it's not something I'd bring up. It's something that like multiple people have said, and so it wasn't the same thing. And they said this that second drop, they're like, this needs to be in like a Michael Bay car chase.
Oh, okay.
So
Michael Bay
upon hearing
movies.
that, I'm interested to see if you feel the same way.
Yeah, no, let's see if this is sync worthy, sync music worthy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying with
Hmm.
the movies? God,
Hmm.
those people make so much money on just a win. And
Right.
then there was
That would be great.
a lot of those LA house producers just got on
Hmm.
some like F1
Oh, really?
race car game, and it was just it showed the list of the DJ all the
Hmm.
producers that were on the soundtrack of this F1 game, and it was like all these house nostalgics like yeah dude, like DJ, I think Dr. Fresh, I'm not sure, but
Oh, I
yeah.
think I know what you were talking about. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I saw that. Yeah, yeah,
so neat. But one for exposure, but two just like whoa man, I'm on a
yeah. It's
video
like
game.
it's crazy how it's in every like everything now.
It
EDM
is.
has become like the new pop almost.
I know. That's why we get stuck up with the vocals sometimes with the
Hmm.
arrangement of vocals. We want to, change the second chorus, and that's very poppy to do.
Hmm.
Like that love song I wrote, it was very poppy. It was like one, but in house and techno, they have one phrase like you did in ultrasound, and then they kind of bring that and utilize that in different ways in other
Yeah.
parts of the song. Yeah, and it's for familiarity, create that trance. so
Mm-hmm.
people know it to dance to.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody likes another chorus, right? But it does make it more poppy, other than this house and techno kind
Mm-hmm.
of genre, is what I've noticed. All right, so we got Damn. Let's do it. Yeah, banger. Dude.
And there you have it.
Oh my God, dude. So I love Herzo for one. I think this is, dude. I feel like I just had a moment with you.
I was about to say, I feel like you saw God
Like,
at some point on that
because
one.
one is Herzo. If you were talking about your trap rings, I don't know if I told you, but I came from, when I started produce, I was trying to make trap. I went by Alpha
There you go.
Trap, and Alpha Trap was another alias that I was playing at the venue. I got a gig at Vulcan. I was having some fun, and then I was like, man, dubstep is not what I want to do in trap, but I love trap so much, and I was very,
Mhm.
very creative. But when I was making the transition, the type of synth work that you were doing, the frequencies will bring memories back. And bro, that
Yeah.
the drum work, the synth work, the phrasing, I wasn't doing it as well as you. Where that song was very compressed and packed right in the frequency field, and everything was hitting right. It had me. Dude, when I talked about that journey of losing myself by about, it's only a 2minute 2 minute 50-second song.
Hmm.
So like about like, I guess after the second drop, or going into the second drop, and then after the second drop, I'm just like, I was starting to lose myself a little bit. And that, I don't know if you sent that out to any places, but that one, hey, man, I'll say it on this podcast, and you don't have to say yes or no right now, but I want that song so bad, man. It is really cool. I think I could do stuff with that song,
Oh yeah.
and give it to the right audiences, because
Awesome.
that one is super fun. It gives what everything after this conversation with you, bro, like your trap background, your love for house music, you did it well. I mean, I think that you did that so well. Nothing was cheesy. I wanted to say there was phrasing, there was like really good phrasing in that, which is honestly a really hard thing to do. And they weren't all the same phrases. You kept on
Hmm.
changing it and giving that creativity and insight to who you are, man. And I loved sharing that with me today. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm stoked you loved it, man. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna probably tweak it a little bit more just on like the sound quality and maybe run it
Yeah.
through a little more
I mean, I
different
wasn't
more
analyzing it
mastering
right
change.
here or anything,
Yeah,
but
I think, but again, not too much, but maybe run it through another mastering chain or something like that. But I'll definitely
yeah.
send it over to you for sure
Oh man, blessed,
before
blessed be
so
thy. Let's go with the wrap up. I know we've been on this thing for an hour 30. We're going to just kick it to one question in here, keep it simple
okay.
in the hydration talk. This is where everything started with PH7. PH7 stands for Perion House, 7 days a week, but it turned into a brand that turned into Meet Me in the Middle because PH7 is in the middle of the pH scale, and it's about balance and meeting your partner, meeting your friend, meeting your colleague at work or whoever, your family member, and your progression of life, meeting people in the middle, people you work with, your the managers, whoever the club owners, like just working with people and fostering community and a better environment for everybody. And it's a hydration talk is what I call it, the hydration house talk, PH7. And so this one question I'll ask is, how important do you think it is for you as a producer DJ to find a sustainable medium in going out all the time, performing, socializing, promoting, and living your life, man?
It's probably the most important factor in doing this all. And it definitely changes, I think, over time. But I think it's also boils down to again, where you kind of have to find a perfect balance for you as yourself on it all. For to bring both those things together almost. When I was early on, when I was not 31 years old, I definitely was able to go out more a lot, and that includes the afters and stuff, and which is super important and kind of what we touched base about earlier is like meeting certain people outside of the their DJ sets or at the club or stuff like that, and you get to meet them kind of and meet them as they are as like a real person. Does that make sense?
Yeah. There's a lot of not evil spirits, but I mean there's a lot of people carrying a lot of negative weight out there, and they're running these events, and you're trying to, uh,
Hmm.
you know, you're trying to see how to talk to them, and like you're
Yeah.
trying to maintain your space, but there's so many different
Hmm.
spaces that you're trying to bring yourself into. I don't know,
Yeah, and
like
it happens to me even nowadays type thing where you try to talk to somebody at the club to be like, and it's like just because that's the only time you might be able to see them type thing, but
yeah,
they're busy as can be, and so it's hard to just get a moment nonetheless. But if it's ever possible to see them not in that setup or anything like that, uh, makes it much more easier. But
like
again,
you
that
were
kind of stuff.
saying before, yeah,
Yeah. But for me nowadays, not that just because I'm older, and I I praise my sleep much more I think than I did when I was in my younger years. Uh, I think it's also kind of helps to from just not burning out, I think.
yeah,
And so for me, it's I found a good balance in kind of how I go about stuff.
yeah.
And so then like throughout the week I don't go out. I really don't drink at all. I definitely work out 5 days a week on the weekdays. Just so come the weekend I'm already in a really fresh
Steady
physical
state.
and mental
The
state.
mystery is not for the weak-minded.
Yeah,
It really
it takes a
is.
toll, man.
It does, and being a very stable, strong person, these three things. I mean, it seems like sleep, drink less, work out. I mean, those are very easy things to stand
Stay
by.
healthy, man. And it's once you get again to like, find the groove that works for you. Because just because I work out 5 days a week doesn't mean everyone else needs to or should a thing. But I mean,
Absolutely,
again, it's it
all built
goes down to
differently.
I was an athlete all my life, and so I've just been conditioned to having to work out 6 days a week essentially. and I'm not doing like, I'm not doing gymnastics workouts where it's like a 4 hour workout. Just I'm in there for an hour max type thing. But if I don't
Yeah.
do that, I mean, or I'm DJing on the weekends,
Those weights
that's my
on.
workout.
You don't
That's my
put the
workout.
you don't
I'm
put those
doing
weights
calf raises for
on.
4 hours. But outside of that, if I'm not working out, if I don't get a workout in on a certain day, it's almost like, again, because I'm so conditioned to having that be part of my day-to-day basis, I don't feel complete in a way. I
Right.
feel like my brain doesn't function as well.
I really to music. There's like you have your oscillation, your right, you're oscillating right. You have them all perfect, and then when you don't oscillate at the same energy,
Hmm.
you're gonna lose some harmonics there.
Yeah,
And you don't want to be losing some harmonics that you're working to press and push into and really let shine.
yeah, no,
It's
100%, yeah. And so I think, yeah, it just kind of comes to, try to go full circle to answer your question. I think it just stems down to find, what works best for you, but it's not gonna just, you know, appear in front of you. You got to kind of, test the waters on different stuff, and like, whether that be working out or drinking less or just, trying to stay as healthy as possible. But again, it kind of comes down to, best for you. And exactly, yeah. And so, and again, I think, like I said before too, I think that also really helps in keeping me from, having any slight chance of, burning out. And so, like, so if, the fact that I don't go out unless I'm DJing, you know it
it's
makes sense
just
to where
it's
it's like,
right here at all
every
times.
just
I'm not gonna
whatever the
burn
set
out.
may be, whatever the
I'm
gig may be, I'm excited as can be for it, because I haven't, that's my like, I keep it so that those are like my outings, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
work, but it's, in my mindset, it's more of a treat.
It's a total treat. You've put in all the work, and you realize this as a producer. You're putting on so much work, and no one sees this work, but it means something to you. And when you get to go out, absolutely, it's a treat. It's
Hmm.
a kid in the candy shop with a
Yeah.
bunch of different controls on there that they get to play with in the night, and I mean, there's so many, yeah, DJs press buttons. I saw London Bridge post something. It's like, yeah, but there's so many freaking buttons you could push on there. Or knobs or whatever. Anyways, though, we are on the backside, and last thing we always do is plug any upcoming events or things that you would like to tell the audience about. This is going to
No, for
release
sure.
next week on Wednesday, so next
Beautiful.
on the 10th.
Cool. Well, definitely tune in for that. Rest of July, I'll be at In Cahoots. I think every Saturday going forward. So
Any
it's In Cahoots,
day, any day.
Saturdays. I'll be there Saturdays. I think this upcoming weekend I'll be doing an earlier set. Usually I do like the 10:30 to 2 a.m. slot, but they're testing out, I guess, doing like a sunset gig. So I'm super stoked for that. So I'll be there 7:30 to 10:30 this weekend.
Nice.
But so hopefully, if that goes well, we'll see more of those as well. But other than that, I'll definitely be there the remaining Saturdays of July, and then first weekend of August, I'll be up in Dallas, doing a Saturday night afters for Voltage afters.
Nice.
So I'm super stoked for that
Haven't heard
because
of
I've
that.
never been there before, but those guys do great stuff. And so I'm doing a double feature, I guess, for them, if you will. So
Nice.
I'm doing that afters, and then they renovated and have been crushing from what it looks like their deep end pool series on Sundays, and so I get to do that on Sunday the 4th, the next
Nice.
day. But I also get to uh, do direct support for that for Party Favor.
Nice.
So that's gonna be fun, man. So I'm super stoked to get some day DJing in for sure. Get some vitamin D on the skin.
Love that for you, bro. So it sounds like there's a lot coming up. I wish you well. I want to keep you in my thoughts, and
Yeah, for
I
sure,
was
man.
I loved talking with you today. This was a wonderful, dude. I mean, longest chat, and I lost track of time, and the music was good. So
Awesome,
I
man. No, I
think,
appreciate it, dude.
yeah,
I thank you so much for having me. For my first podcast experience, I couldn't have asked for it to go any better or I mean, fun for lack of a better word. I had a blast.
Amen.
So
Amen.
definitely, jot me down to do a part two at some point.
Absolutely. I'll keep you in thought, man. Hang on with me after, but take care, buddy. All right.
All right, man. Thanks, Donovan.